This is episode 5 with Felicia Spahr. Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. All right, welcome back, and today we are going to talk about a subject that every single man must confront at one point in his life or another, and that is self-confidence. I cannot think of something that has more of an impact on our lives than personal confidence, and with it, you're unstoppable. Women, wealth, recognition, influence, the world is your oyster, but without it, life can feel unbelievably frustrating, unfulfilling, and even depressing. So today, I wanted to introduce you to my friend Felicia Spahr, because Felicia has spent much of her adult life over the last few years teaching men how to increase their charisma, social skills, leadership, and personal confidence. And as you're going to find out in today's episode, which gets quite personal, this is a subject matter that has been near and dear to my heart, because this is a transformation process that I had to go through many years ago with the help of my friend Eben Pagan. And it has made me who I am today. And my life would definitely not be the same without this. So please help me welcome Felicia Spahr. Hey, everybody. This is Mike Dillard, and welcome to another episode of Self-Made Man. And I'm really excited about the guest that we have today. It is my friend Felicia Spahr. And are you there, Felicia?
I'm right here.
Awesome. So we are going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I have a feeling that it's going to resonate with all of the guys out there that are listening to this today, which is self-confidence. Self-confidence when it comes to your own image, when it comes to your career, when it comes to women and who you're dating and your relationships. And this is something that Felicia has spent a large part of her life studying and helping guys with, and she's run a bunch of successful programs and put together some amazing info that I've been reading and studying for a while. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Felicia, and thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
So start by, if you could, telling us a little bit about you and how you got involved in this subject matter.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, but the short version of it is that I, for a long time, struggled with perfectionism. And for some guys struggle with it too, but I think for what it's worth, a lot of us have all struggled with our self-worth being tied up in other things versus being able to get it from ourselves. So my particular journey, I struggled with this for a long time. It basically got me to the point where I had lost my relationship that meant so much to me. I was at a rock bottom point. It was like, I remember the day after New Year's, and my mom walked into my room and she goes, "I think you need to talk to someone." She didn't even know what was going on. And at that point I was like, okay, I need to work on this and work through some of this stuff. And, confidence is a very vague term, and I think we're all trying to define it and figure out what it is. But what happened for me was I actually started working with someone on this in particular, and she really helped me rebuild my life and rebuild my true confidence step by step. And what I mean by true confidence is that deep internal knowing feeling, not something that you need to fake, not something that you need to just put on certain body language for. It's something that you feel day by day, no matter what happens. So that was what I was fascinated with. And, I had started other businesses in copywriting and marketing, but I realized that my gift was not so much selling other people's products and services as it was helping other people sell who they were or communicate their best selves to other people. And a core pillar of that is confidence.
It's interesting to hear. I've never actually heard this side of, this concern coming from a woman, actually. It usually is something that I've just always considered was a guy thing, which I'm sure is silly or stupid or naive, but it's just never occurred to me because, one of the things that we talked about getting ready for this show is a lot of societal's pressures that are put on men specifically on feeling, worthy. And I can totally admit that there have been many phases in my life, specifically in my, high school, college, and early 20s, where I essentially put my life on hold, specifically when it came to dating, until I accomplished what I thought I needed to accomplish in order to be worthy of being in a relationship. And
that's fascinating.
it was a period where there was, a good 5 years where I was struggling to pay my bills, and I was building my business as a young entrepreneur, and I was waiting tables. And for a couple of those years, I even moved in with my parents again to save money. And, there was definitely during that time, a period where I wouldn't even consider dating someone, because who would want to date a guy that's broke and living with his parents? So,
See, that's what I'm fascinated by.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of things that people struggle with, at least my clients, when it comes to confidence, is of course the not enoughs, imposter syndrome, which I believe are children of shame. But just like you said, feeling ashamed, why would someone ever want to date me? And so I would question anyone who's might be thinking that as they're listening to this, why would someone date me? I'm not even close to where I'd want to be. My question would be, well, why wouldn't they? For what reason? What standards do you have that say that you must be a certain kind of man right now in order to date someone that would find you worthy?
Well, absolutely. And that's a tough story to get over. And,
oh, absolutely.
And so, and I have to say, I didn't do it successfully, because the way I got about it was reaching my goals and becoming successful, and then therefore feeling worthy of that. So I didn't really claim victory over that story. So that's, what I'd love to dive into today is what can you share with the guys that are listening to this who, might be feeling that exact same way at this point in their life?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of steps to this, and we're going to make this very actionable so that any guy who's listening can immediately put it into action. So the first step is to really understand I call them core values. We can call them beliefs just for simplicity's sake. Or what beliefs do you currently have right now that are not getting you the results that you want? And a perfect example, like you just mentioned, is saying well, I want to be dating, but I can't until I get to a certain level of success, or until I believe that I'm worthy when I get that thing. I mean, I had a friend of mine who once texted me something about his relationship, and I was like, well, what happened? Why'd you guys break it off? And he was like, well, I want to get the business together before I get into a relationship. And to me, that logic is totally backwards, because I mean, being in a relationship is about having someone who supports you, pretty much unconditionally. So you first want to understand, what belief do you currently have, whether it's around being worthy or maybe things that you feel ashamed about. You first need to understand what those are. And I would say let's just focus on one for today, one that comes up as you're listening to this. We don't want to get overwhelmed. And then you want to understand, well, how can I transform that into something healthy? Or what do I want to believe instead? Because I know that we don't all walk around and think, I want to believe that I'm not worthy to date someone until I get to be this successful. Those are usually voices, whether it's from family, culture, or other people that are influencing us. And we actually those aren't our thoughts. So the point is that you want to challenge that. I had a client that went through this exact same exercise, and she was like, this was so difficult for me because no one had ever sat me down and had me think about it. Which was why at this point her life felt off. Things weren't clicking. So the first step, what's one current value or belief that you have it's coming up, it's influencing you, but it's not necessarily something that you want to believe. And then what would you like to believe instead? Even if you're not there yet, that's fine. But what would you like to believe instead? And it could be as simple as, well, I want to believe I'm worthy of someone no matter what stage I'm at in my life. I could be broke, or I could be just trying to find my way. And as long as I'm taking responsibility and moving forward, then why shouldn't someone love me if I'm taking control of my life like that? So that I would say is the first step.
Okay.
And then the second part is you want to understand what's one thing that you can do that will help you move closer to believing what you want to believe. So let me give you an example from my own life. When I was struggling with working through my perfectionist tendencies, my current belief at that time was I need to be perfect, which meant that I always had to look great, which meant that I could never go outside without makeup on. It meant that I could never miss a day at the gym. It meant I could never make mistakes, let alone admit mistakes. You can imagine how stressful and exhausting that was for me. So the new thing I wanted to believe is I wanted to believe that I actually didn't have to be perfect and that I could value myself and I didn't have to deserve to make time for myself. I didn't have to do something in order to even treat myself to something small. So the one thing that I started to do that would help me get there, and the key here is starting small and starting with one thing, is I was like, you know what? I'm going to carve out an hour a day just for me every single day. Now that was pretty bold. I usually tell people start with 10 minutes a day because you want to make it manageable. But I wanted to carve out that time for myself, and it was selfish time. It was not tied into any goals that I had. It wasn't tied into any other purpose than just for me. It was supposed to make me happy, help me feel calm, relaxed. And it was quite difficult. So, as for the guys listening, as you guys are going through this and thinking about just one action that you can take, you don't even have to do it every day. Just start with even twice a week is enough to get started. You're going to experience a lot of resistance because you can imagine when you have a certain belief that's been driving your life for so long, it's going to take a little bit of coaxing and persuading to kind of move yourself out of that. So start with one thing here, one habit that's manageable, that you know that you can do it, put it on your calendar and actually show up and follow through. What's key is showing up and following through, because confident people are usually people who do what they say they're going to do. And they not only keep promises to themselves, but they not only keep promises to other people, but they keep promises to themselves. They know that they're a worthy person. And because of that, they're able to give more to other people and help more people. So remember that, like the 80% of this game is just showing up and following through on what you said you were going to do for yourself. So that is the second step.
Very cool. So that reminds me, when I've gone through, my down periods where confidence is at a low, the thing that has always gotten me back on track quicker than anything else is exercise. And I found that when I'm down or going through a tough time, that's usually when I fall off the wagon when it comes to my fitness and health. There's usually, more time spent, with a cocktail or a glass of wine than, normally. Yeah. And so the moment that I'm really ready to get my life back on track and I recognize what's going on, getting into the gym, starting exactly what you said, picking that one commitment to stick to has, choosing that and starting with fitness has been unbelievably helpful to me. And I think it is for most people when you get your body moving again, especially for guys, you start to feel strength again. Your posture, is infinitely better. Your shoulders go back, your head goes up, and that does a ton for your biochemistry.
Yes.
And you start to elevate your self-worth in if nothing else in the mirror every single morning, which is a great way to start off the day. Right. And really sets everything, back on track. So that, is really where I've found a lot of success as far as starting out goes.
Absolutely. And something else I would tack on to step 2 here to give the guys listening even more of a roadmap along with what you just said is, guys that I work with, I tell them to create a power ritual. So, for women, I talk more about self-care, but for men, it's like, if you want to choose an activity that maybe starts off your day, something that makes you feel powerful, whether that's exercise or something, manly that you do. And again, it could just be for 10 minutes. You can start really small and then you can start integrating it into your life every single day. This is what I do. Obviously, I don't have this hardcore manly power ritual routine, but I do my own thing. And that sets off my day so that I can always get things done. I'm always productive and I feel centered. I feel like I'm connected and I know what I want. So for the guys who are like, what action should I take? Think about a power ritual. What exercise, what activity would make you feel powerful just starting off your day and just trying that for 2 or 3 times a week at this point.
Would you mind sharing that with us?
Like what I do every morning?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it always changes, but it usually goes in this format. I wake up at around 5:45 every morning and I like to read. So I might read something from a really good fiction book or another magazine that just really, it provokes me. Like it's thought provoking. It's not like fluffy material. It's pretty deep. And I found that gives me a lot of energy when I wake up. So I do that for maybe 15, 20 minutes. If the book is really good and it's just taking me away, I might do it for half an hour. And then after that, I usually will work out, whether that's going for a run outside or doing another routine at home. And then something else that I like to incorporate is either having breakfast by myself. So I'll have like my cup of tea and I'll just sit alone in call it my Zen room in my apartment. Or sometimes I'll journal. And for the guys listening, it's not like some touchy-feely, all my feelings are out on my journal every morning. But I would honestly think about it, and this is actually fantastic advice from a peak performance coach. His name is Josh Waitskin, and he calls these creative bursts. So when I journal, it's more of philosophical thinking. I might think about a certain topic that I'm very interested in or something that's been on my mind lately. And I'm just like, what do I think about that? And I might just journal it out for 5-10 minutes. And I found that it flexes my creativity muscle. And it's something that for me, I really value. I value having different perspectives and being able to talk about different things with different people. So that's something that makes me feel good. And then I usually start my day. And that routine takes around hour and a half, 2 hours every morning. So I've gotten it up to that level where I've made that time for myself and I never miss it. Like it's non-negotiable time. That's key about this, especially when you have family, you have children, you have a full-time job. What I talk to people about, it's like, it's not enough to even think about this and then put it on your calendar. You also have to communicate to other people that this is non-negotiable time. Like if someone's trying to encroach on it, you have to be like, you know what? This is the time for me. I'm more than happy to help you with that or do that for you later, but this is me time right now. And that's probably the hardest thing for people to do.
You will setting up a new routine is always a challenge, but ideally, the more pain you're in, the easier it is to finally get to the point where you're willing to make that change.
Right.
And,
exactly.
And so we've gone over the first two steps in your system here. What would be number 3?
Yeah. So number 3, and this is, puts it all together, is creating a powerful feedback loop. So what that means is that whatever activity you do, whether it's what you're listening to right now, anything in the exercise realm, sports, you want to be able to make sure that you have metrics for success. You want to know that you're making progress, you're on the right track, or else it's really easy for you to just go back and do what you were doing before. So what I would recommend for this, as you're integrating your one thing with your one value or belief that you want to change, is first defining what is your metric for success. And usually with this kind of stuff is you want to measure how you're feeling. So are you feeling more relaxed? Are you feeling happier? Are you feeling clear-headed? Like, what are you actually feeling? What's changing? What's not working? You need to, this also help you get in touch with what's going on inside your head. So the first part is, how are you feeling? Most important metric. The second metric is, okay, how is this affecting other areas of my life? How is this affecting my relationships, my family, my work? Is anything changing? Are people noticing anything different about me? What's happening? You want to take notice of all those things. I found with clients that go through this is they start noticing that other people might be more open to approaching them. They might be more interested in hearing what they have to say. It's fascinating because sometimes when you do something like this, you come off as being more thoughtful, more grounded, more confident in who you are. I mean, that's the whole point of this anyway. So you want to pay attention to those things too. And you want to evaluate, okay, do I like what's happening in the outside world right now? What am I noticing? And again, what is working? You want to keep doing more of that. And what's not working? Sometimes when we first start making these new habits and routines, we'll find that the activity that we chose is kind of meh, So you have to give yourself permission to go back and be like, okay, let me try something else and see if this gets me better results. There's nothing wrong with that happening. Everybody's different.
Could you give a couple of examples, or at least one example of that?
Which part? Like what you would actually do for a ritual or a feedback?
Either one. If you want to pick a scenario that you've observed and with one of your clients that you've coached that didn't work out and the change they made, or.
Yeah, absolutely. So a client of mine was, again, going through the same process, and she noticed that I think she was trying like meditating. That's what she wanted to try and do. And she noticed that it wasn't really quite working with her. So she was like, okay, not really working. Let me try something else. So she actually really dove right into doing the journaling, doing the writing every day. And that really helped her process everything. And even, again, not just from a touchy-feely perspective, but just get out all of these thoughts that were stuck inside of her head. And she felt it helped her feel more clear-headed. She was more focused. She can more easily handle the stresses and challenges of the work that she does. So that's one example. I know another one with another man that I worked with. He actually didn't so much like the journaling thing or the writing down thing. So for him, it was exercise. Exercise was something that he felt got him the energy that he wanted, got him the focus that he wanted. And that was something that worked for him. So it's a very simple thing to just be like, okay, let me just try something else. I might get better results. It might be more aligned with what I like, what my interests are. You have to test out the waters. Like I said, I'm always changing up my routine and incorporating new things and measuring like, okay, is this working? Do I feel more productive, more energy? Am I happier? Am I worse off? What's happening? So it's dynamic. You got to keep measuring it.
You know, one of the things that I've enjoyed reading about in the emails that you send out is the stories and the content when it comes to charisma, which is a big part of confidence. I believe, and
yes.
So I really enjoyed reading those stories, and I wanted to see if you could share a little bit about what you teach your guy clients when it comes to acquiring more charisma. Because if you're in a point in your life where your confidence level is not as high as it should be, or if you're just an introverted person and quite shy, it can be difficult to muster that kind of confidence, especially if you're trying to meet a significant other, whatever it may be.
Right.
How many opportunities can you think of for the guys who are listening out there? How many opportunities have, we all passed by, walking past an amazing woman, and we just weren't feeling the confidence that we wanted at the moment, and we let her walk by.
Yeah.
How powerful would it be if you could change that?
Yeah, that's a beautifully loaded question. I'm going to try to answer it as best as I can. So when I work with men on this in particular, obviously it's a little bit different than what I would work on with a woman. Most men, they really want to learn how can I have these amazing, deep conversations with, whether it's with women or other people. And like you said, if they're introverted, most of them just want to be able to be that person instead of trying to overcome it. So a lot of men that I work with tend to have they have the calm, quiet confidence, and that's what they want to project. So first of all, it's life-changing to be able to see a woman that you're interested in or who's attractive and just be able to go up to her and start talking. I mean, that is the dream, I would say. And I mean, obviously I'm not a man, but that was what I did myself when I first met my fiance. I saw a group of people and I just went up to them and I started talking. And what that is based on and what I teach is just like what we talked about today. You have to build the foundation of confidence. If you don't have confidence, charisma is much harder to muster, and you may be able to attain it. I've had people that you can have it without having strong confidence, but it's not lasting. And most people get this frustration where they don't want to fake it. They want to be able to have it forever. They want to be able to tap into it when they want to. So first of all, you have to build a foundation of confidence. And then I started talking more about charisma, which is more about, okay, how are we interacting with this person? How are you showing how attractive you are? What are your conversation skills like? And I literally teach people how to talk to other people. That's a huge part of what I do. And being able to almost detect with a detective's sense, when you're talking to someone, what are they not saying? That's one of the biggest skills that I teach people is you have to be able to hear what people aren't saying in order to truly, deeply connect with them on a completely different level that they have not experienced before. It's very rare to find someone who really, really understands you and gets you. And it doesn't have to be something that's manufactured or manipulative like a lot of the pickup world stuff is. It can be very real. And it's just, these are skills. I think that's one of the biggest myths is that this is something that people innately have, where it's actually something that can be learned and increased and made better over time.
That is really interesting. As far as I think I'm sure you are a fan of Lewis Howes and his podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had a guest on recently, Chris, and it was about the art of listening. Wow, which was a fantastic episode. But it was essentially what you're talking about right there, which is learning how to listen, which is something that can definitely be a challenge for people. You know, I've found that there are times when I'm really excited about what the other person is talking about, so I can't wait to jump in and share what I'm thinking, you know, as far as the same topic goes, which doesn't really produce the result that you want every time.
Right.
You know, is there any advice, or are there any parts of your methodology that have to do with changing a person's self-image as far as how maybe they're dressing, or anything in that regard?
In terms of what I would work with men on?
Sure. You know, and the reason I ask is I'm going through my head as I'm listening to you, you know, picking out scenarios and things that I've done to personally, you know, boost my confidence in the past. And a lot of that can be as simple as going out and getting, you know, a new shirt or a pair of shoes, or, you know, something along the lines that, you know, maybe you couldn't quite afford at the time, but it's what you're aspiring to be. And so to start really living out that action in the moment, for me, has really been a powerful strategy.
Right. Absolutely. I think so. I mean, I have people that I refer to stylists because I'm not a stylist myself. I got all my style tips from my very glamorous grandmother. But what's important to understand about the concept that you're talking about is one of my philosophies is that you don't have to change who you are or even how you look in order to be this confident, charismatic person. Like, it's just more foundational. You don't need to change how you dress first. I would change who you are first. And then, because what happens is once clients and, you know, men, women start getting in touch with, oh, this is who I really am and this is what I really want, they're like, oh, they literally become attracted to, like, oh, I'd actually look great in that. Because now they have the confidence to be like, yeah, I could pull that off. I would look great in it. I'm just going to get it. That's usually the progression of what happens. It's like working on who you are, self-concept, self-image, then layering on charisma, and then like putting it all together in this. Now you're a package. Like you've created this brand of yourself, and you're like, oh, of course I can wear that amazing suit. Of course I can wear like these really nice jeans. That usually is what tends to happen.
You know, Felicia, this reminds me of, you know, something one of my best friends, Robert, talks about all the time, which is the do have be scenario, which basically means, you know, if I can just do X, then I'll have Y, and finally I'll be, you know, Z. So if I can just go earn more money, and I'll finally be able to have the nice car, and then I will be someone desirable, you know, out there in the world. And anyone who's fallen, you know, down or trekked down the path of personal development and reached some kind of result after years of tripping on the logs in the path, they've realized that it is actually the opposite. You have to start with be, and then you go to do, and then you go to the have aspect. And so it really comes down to being the person you want to be right now, here today, wherever you are at any point in your life, whether you're waiting tables or, you know, if you're out of work. It is really accepting your value and your potential moving forward, and the fact that you can architect every single, you know, piece of your life. You're no longer a victim of your circumstance. And once you move down that path of being who you want to be, then the rest really shows up automatically. And it's, you know, we've heard it called The Secret, you know, in movies and manifestation and all of these other terms to describe what is essentially, you know, that three word phrase. So I would love your thoughts on that, if you've found you know, that to be similar in your experience.
Well, it's fascinating because when I first started on my own journey, I had all of these thoughts very frequently as I was working through my stuff, if you will. And it was that I felt like I had wasted so much time. And I was like, wow, I'm like spending all this time rebuilding this new person that I am and this life that I want to have. And I remember feeling sad almost. I was like, oh, I feel like I lost so many years. But what happened, like that kind of thinking really means like, oh, like I should have known, or like, again, I should be this successful type of person that everyone's telling me to be in order for me to get what I want. So like, we need to first be able to question that. Just like, and that's why the exercises that we talked about before are so relevant to this. You need to question the standards you're measuring yourself up against. when you say things to yourself like, once I get my shit together, then I'll be worthy of dating this kind of woman. Like, you can easily let that go unchecked. And in fact, it's very seductive to let that go unchecked because it's such a prevalent way of thinking. But I highly recommend challenging that and saying, well, why is that true? I mean, are there any other examples out there that shows me this isn't true? How do I even know? Why are those the standards? Like, what should the standards be for me? And again, a lot of that kind of thinking and why we don't even question it is because we feel so ashamed. It's this shame, like, oh, I should have known, I should be this, I should be that by now. And that's why when we talked about focusing on like that one value or belief that you want to work on transforming and doing the one thing, the one action, the one habit, that embodies what you were talking about, Mike, where it's moving yourself closer to where you want to be, to who you want to be, even if you don't have or don't think you have all the resources or all the things necessary in order to do it. I mean, another example is when I first went out on my own and started my own business, I had no connections. I had no idea how to make money or use my skills in any sort of valuable way. But doing this kind of work that we're talking about today allowed me to at least feel internally, I was like, I might not know anything right now. And this could end badly, but I feel like I'm going to be okay. I know I'm going to be okay. And of course, that feeling was coupled with me taking responsibility for my life and being like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do it. And that's usually the part where a lot of people give up. It's not even letting themselves get into the game. It's just sitting on the sidelines. So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that totally brings a flashback to a part of my life when I was in, probably 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. And I'm working on my first, entrepreneurial ventures as a senior in college and right after. And, it was back in the networking industry and, 1999, 2000. And, here I am trying to, sell a business opportunity in a line of products that were quite expensive at the time to, my parents' friends who were in their 40s. And, a big challenge that I had trouble overcoming was the fact that who am I to be talking about business or making money to any of these people when I'm a broke college student, And I have zero experience in life. I know how to go to keg parties and work out in the gym and ride a bike. And that was about it at the time. And that was a story that I had in my head, which was a huge challenge for me for many, many years. And the way that I finally got over it was increasing my personal value to the world. And I actually call that a PVL, personal value level. And that was really the huge transition point in my life, both professionally, but from a personal self-confidence as well. And what I stopped doing was chasing, business opportunities and things like that. And I started focusing on increasing my value level by acquiring new skills like copywriting, like, internet marketing and Google. And within a period of 6 to 12 months, all of the sudden I had acquired what, in the business realm at that period in time were superhuman skills that, the older generation were, awed by. And so I've really found that was a key turning point, and my self-confidence was going out and increasing my value and acquiring these skills, which led to that positive feedback loop that you mentioned earlier, meaning that, hey, I can now go, manufacture business results that had eluded me before on my own terms. And those results were, providing me with positive feedback from my audience and, my mentors and my business partners. Right. And that really was I think one of the top two turning points in my life as far as the confidence level went. And, that's something that every single person that can listen to this, can do right now, which is to increase your value level to the world. So, I think that is the answer to a question that you and I probably hear all the time, which is, hey, I don't have what you have. I'm broke. How am I supposed to make that leap? And that's how it's done. And it sounded like you had a fairly similar story as well.
Yeah, I did. And I love that you also talked about they're all different kinds of feedback loops. And, at least in the business world, a great feedback loop is, getting paid for the services or the skills that you provide to other people because it lets you know that you're on the right track. So it's good to know that there are all these different ways of getting positive feedback. And for me, it's also extremely important to make sure that you also, in complimenting those other ones, is that you get it from yourself, which is exactly how I felt when I had my turning point. Like I said, it was like I knew, even though I didn't know, I knew I could do it. And by taking responsibility for what I wanted, it was like, okay, what skills do I need to learn? Who do I need to talk to? How can I help? What do I need to do? And, having that knowing, that certainty inside yourself, like I will be able to follow through on whatever it is that I need to do to make this happen. That's the kind of confidence that keeps propelling you forward. It keeps helping you grow. It's actually not that much of a secret as it is easy to say, but difficult to do.
Where does that come from? Where does that attitude come from? Because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I have had, the same thing always. And back when I was starting and I just graduated from college, and, there was a point in time where I was, about a week or two away from leaving my $300 a month apartment, which is all that I could afford at the time, and moving into a air-conditioned storage unit and showering at the gym every day. But that's what I was going to have to do to continue to pursue my business goals. And you've really had that same, do it or die trying attitude. And where did that come from you?
That's a good question. I do think one part of it is that I have always been quite ambitious. So I can't quite say where it came from other than I had people pushing me to be ambitious. But the other part is honestly like exactly what we talked about today. Like I worked with someone on building my own confidence. And because I did that work, because I faced a lot of things about myself at that time that I was unhappy about, which is not easy to do. So I think that's, first of all, why like we say things like it's easy to say, difficult to do. It's hard to reflect on yourself and be like, oh, these are the things that have happened to me, good, bad, ugly, whatever. And because I felt like I worked through that, I think emotional work is much more difficult than anything else. I just, that was what helped me feel like I just knew. I was like, look, if I can get through that, if I've been doing all this other stuff, why shouldn't I be able to achieve what I want? It was almost like demanding an answer from my brain. I was like, look, why wouldn't I be able to do this? Like, really, why? There's nothing holding me back. There really isn't anymore. So again, like questioning like these thoughts that come up for us, it's like, well, give me a good reason why I wouldn't succeed. And like really demand from yourself an answer. Like be like, look, explain to me. This is what I do to myself when I say like, oh, let's go check Facebook one more time. I'm like, you now must explain to me why. I make myself explain to myself why. And usually when that happens,
why you need to check Facebook again, or why you should not check Facebook again?
Why I need to check it. I'll be like, okay, just tell me why you need to check it. And there's never a good reason. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to do it.
Right. It's brutal. I've unfortunately like gotten into that habit of if I have my phone on me and my mind is not preoccupied for like a 3-second window, then boom, that's what I'm doing is Twitter and Facebook check. And It's something I've become painfully aware of. And there was actually an article on Business Insider talking about, the headline was, why you're addicted to checking Facebook and social media. Unfortunately, I did read it, but it didn't go into the detail. Bottom line is it stimulates certain parts of your brain system that are, where addiction is found, and which is not good, but that's funny. Yeah, it's, the reason that I asked you that question is, for me personally, my desire, to do whatever I needed to do to get the results that I wanted to really become the person that I wanted to be was, rooted in a lot of, I would just say, pain. The thought of working for somebody else and being told what to do and where to be for the rest of my life and how much I could earn was unfathomable, unfathomable for me. And, that started in, waiting tables in high school of, having to work late nights on the weekends while my friends are out partying and having to miss out on, those social aspects was not a lot of fun. So I was very curious to see if there was something, in your past that gave you that drive, because that's something that, if we look at all of our mutual friends that we have in common, that drive is there in every single one of them. I can honestly say that I don't know of one successful entrepreneur friend of mine that's, half lazy and half driven. That just doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what I know I'm not going to give all the details, but basically I was very unhappy for I would say the first half of my life. So it was very emotionally tumultuous, and I just felt like everything was unpredictable and unstable. So that was what had led me to my rock bottom moment where I was like, I need to work on this. Absolutely. Awesome. Or else my life is going to fall apart. I will destroy myself if I don't. So it was definitely rooted in a burning pain to turn my life around.
My theory remains intact. So thank you.
Yeah, it's usually true. It really is hard to find someone who hasn't gone through something.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. I have a 4-year-old son, and so he's growing up faster than I can imagine. And on one hand, as a parent, you want to raise a happy child and for life to go well for them. But on the other hand, I'm secretly wishing that in high school or college, but probably most likely in high school, that he goes through some really tough challenges, because I really think that is what creates that desire and fortitude that you need to really go out and carve your life out, which is what we're talking about here. Totally off topic and random transition here, but I've had this in the back of my head that I've been wanting to ask you, and I want to make sure I get it out there. But
okay.
One of the
this will be good.
Hopefully, but it's stuck around in my head for about 10 years now, and I find myself continually using this, every once in a while, and I've passed it on to a few people, and what it is in my mind is a confidence test, specifically, that I share with guys. And if you want to know if you're at a point in your life where you want to kind of measure your confidence level at any point in time, and it does help if you're single when you're doing this, I would definitely not do it. If you're with your spouse or whatever it may be. But
why is that?
Well, I'm going to leave that up to them and their relationship rules. But,
okay.
One of and my friend Eben Pagan taught me this years ago, and it was basically, if you're walking, downtown or down the sidewalk or wherever it may be, and you walk past a woman that you're really attracted to and you make eye contact, with, notice who breaks eye contact first. And typically what I found is that when I'm in a period where I'm not feeling confident at all, I will be the one who breaks eye contact first and look away. And if that is not the case, then, I will hold it until the other person either breaks it away, or you end up both going up and saying hello to each other. So
right.
That is it is a really quick, easy way for, you guys to go out and really measure where you're at. And if you're not in that kind of a place where you can hold eye contact, then that really tells you something, and it's an opportunity to really get to that point. And I think that's a super, super interesting, game to play throughout your daily life for sure. Are there any things, like that, any tricks that you have that you've found that are really helpful as far as confidence goes?
Oh, there's so many things. I mean, one thing that you mentioned that reminded me of a client that I had. He was so afraid of eye contact. And it wasn't until I pointed it out that he started noticing it in his real life. And it was because he was so afraid to be vulnerable. Eye contact is actually a vulnerability thing. So if you notice yourself looking away or not holding it for a long time, obviously you don't want to be creepy and hold it for too long. But the point is that when you notice yourself doing it for if there's that whisper of fear, someone's going to really see me, I would recommend hold it for even if it's a half a second longer than you're comfortable with, and keep building on that. That was one thing I worked on with this guy, and it opened up a world for him. He got to the point where he was able to hold eye contact for as long as he ever wanted to, and it wasn't scary for him anymore. And, that's why having a positive feedback loop is so important. And I think about this as like conditioning yourself. You're just removing yourself from old conditioning and you're conditioning yourself into something that's more fun, more healthy for you, more exciting, however you want to look at it. So, you want to be like playful about this. It's not like the super serious, like I must get better at eye contact because if I don't be confident, my life is going to be over. The people who I work with who are the most successful are the ones who are very open and playful about this kind of stuff. It really takes a lot of the pressure off of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. What are, we've got about 10 minutes left and I'd love to do two things. I'd love to recap your 3 steps. And, this was really, really basic stuff that people can take away from this podcast now and go implement starting today. And obviously there's more to this process. And if you could share with everyone, what that process looks like or how you can facilitate and help some of the guys who are listening to this who might want to work with you, on this topic. Yeah. What does that process look like and what are their options?
Absolutely. So I'll recap the 3 steps first. So the first step is you want to understand and choose one belief or value that you have right now that's not really healthy for you, or you feel like it's not really getting you what you want. Great example again, if you're getting into that mindset of I'm not worthy until I do XYZ and I can't get the woman I want until I do ABC. Like I would choose that one because usually that's a priority for a lot of guys. So you pick that and then you think, okay, what would I prefer to believe? Like, what do I actually want to believe? Do I want to believe that I am worthy no matter what? Do I want to believe that I can date any woman no matter what stage I'm at in my life? I mean, what would you prefer to believe? The second step is what's one step that will help you get there? One step that'll help you actually believe what you want to believe instead of just being like, oh, am I deluding myself? Is this a total, like, am I faking it now? Remember, this takes time. So you want to choose that one action, that one thing that you're going to do. And for men who are confused about like where you might get started, I would say start with a power ritual. It could be for 10 minutes, try it 2 to 3 times a week. You can slowly integrate that into your life. You choose something, an activity or a combination that makes you feel powerful, that makes you feel whatever feeling that you're going after. And then the last part of this is you want to make sure that you have metrics to measure. So you want to be measuring, how am I feeling? What is changing? How are people responding to me differently? How is this affecting my relationships, my family, my work? What is actually happening? And that'll help you see what's working. And then when you know what's working, you do more of it. And then what's not working, you'd be like, okay, so maybe this activity isn't working so well for me, or maybe I'm starting out a bit too aggressive. Let's scale it back. This is totally dynamic. Like there's no such thing as failing. The only thing that you need to do is make the promise to yourself and follow through and actually do it. So that's the most important like series of steps that I would have anyone start with. And so in terms of how I work with a lot of the men who are my clients is we really focus on, I do things in phases. So depending on what someone's objectives are, usually these are in the social, interpersonal relationships realm. But the method I go about it is I always first focus on confidence and really giving you very targeted, individualized action plans so that you know that you're making progress, you know that you're improving, and you're getting the results that you want because that's what matters. So usually focus on confidence. And then I move into, okay, so how do we get closer to your actual objectives, whether that's social, relationships, what does that actually look like? And layering on that with, okay, let's talk about charisma. Let's talk about your conversation skills. Let's talk about how you're presenting yourself to other people, body language, for example. And then usually the last phase of any kind of work I do with someone is, all right, like let's now like package this all together. Let's close, how close are we to what you actually want? What are your goals? And like locking it in. That's what I like to say. Like salesmen say, like, let's close, close, close. I'm like, let's lock it in. So instead of us just like, we're taking these small steps and now it's like, let's do it. So that's the basic framework, how I work with someone. Obviously it's always different depending on what someone's objectives and goals are, but everything is highly individualized. I'm very high touch and it's very results oriented. So you always know that you're getting the kind of results that you want.
And where's the best place for people to go learn more about what you do?
So I highly recommend going to my site, howtobeinstantlyirresistible.com. And if anyone's more interested in the one-on-one side of things, best thing to do is just email me, and then we can discuss what you actually want.
And they can find your email on the site?
Yes, it's all on there.
Okay, awesome. Well, Felicia, thank you so much for your time today. This was super fun, and hopefully not the last time that we'll dive into this topic again. And this type of stuff I find fascinating, and it's really cool to see what you've been doing to help guys out in this realm over the past few years. And I'm truly grateful for that, and for the time that we've had here, to get to know you today. And for everybody out there who's listening, definitely go check out Felicia and her info. And she's absolutely amazing, and you'll be very glad that you did. So thanks so much again, Felicia. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed today.